Hello, class, and welcome to a video about essay number 1. Again, the question, does Louise Mallard die of J-O-Y? Is it literal joy? She's happy to see him. Is it ironic joy? She's sad to see him. Or is it maybe a metaphorical or figurative joy, something else? Maybe shock? A different type of joy than seeing him, something like that. So is it literal? Is it ironic? Is it metaphorical or figurative? She does use the word J-O-Y, right? So again, keep that in mind. And that's why that exercise 2F, pick facts from the story. And there's something going on in every paragraph, right? Whether it's metaphors, dialogue, plot, right? What happens when you look at those elements of fiction, right? Plot, what happens, the elements of fiction, page 76 to 79. Make sure you use those as your supporting points. Every paper that you write for this class, we write about literature. So you'll always be looking at the elements of fiction, pages 76 to 79, in reading and writing about literature. Plot, character, setting, style, theme, point of view, and I think that's all of them, right? So again, keep that in mind. I'm kind of just doing this video on the fly here right now, so make sure you focus on pages 76 to 79. There's a more specific lecture video on essay 1 and the elements of fiction and things like that. The point of this is I want to make sure that everybody understands what you need to do for essay 1. Take a look at my sample introduction on the website. And lastly, if you are unaware of how to get sources from the MESA library, hopefully you did that in English 101. But if not, let me show you. So I'm going to split the screen here. Bear with me. MESA homepage, right? Hello. Okay, so see up here in the right-hand corner, click on library, right? Library research, and I have directions for this on the Canvas page, but let me show you with the video. A to Z database, right? Now go over here to subjects, literature, language, and communication studies. This is the deal. This section of the database you can use to get sources for all of your essays for this class. Literature sources, Lit Finder, Literature Resource Center. These three all work. This Literature Resource Center is my favorite database, and I think it's the most effective one to use for every paper you write for this class. Now, enter your CSID, enter your last name because you're accessing it from off campus. If you were on campus, you'd be able to just click right in. This database is free. It's part of your tuition. So I would use this Literature Resource Center for articles for all of your essays. But can you use sources from the internet as well? Absolutely. If you're going to do Google searches, make sure you use reliable websites. But Google Scholar works as well. Another website that works for this essay, right? And anytime you're writing an essay, Google your author's name, right? Most authors will either have a page on biography.com or will have their own website, right? Try to stay away from Wikipedia for 200 level papers. If you want to use it as a starting point, like a search engine, and then go to the specific articles at the bottom and cite the sources itself, that's fine, but you don't want to cite an encyclopedia in a college class. AmericanLiterature.com, Britannica.com, again, encyclopedia, biography of Kate Chopin from vcu.edu. Stay away from Cliff Notes, right? So when you Google the author's name, if a biography comes up on biography.com or their website, feel free to use it, right? katechopin.org, her biography document. This is a great document that you could use as a source for the essay, right? And again, when you Google Kate Chopin, if you find reputable articles from websites, that's cool. Just don't use Cliff Notes, don't use Schmoop, don't cite essays that are published that were written by other students. You want reputable secondary sources. So back to the database. Anytime you're writing a paper for this class, start by typing in the author's name, Chopin date, right? And if it comes up specifically, click on that. Now there's 536. So name of work, limit it by name of work. And we're writing on the story of an hour. So now you have 12 to choose from. Now, if there were still a lot to choose from, you could further limit the search. And you could type in maybe a theme or an idea, maybe if you want to write about gender, or you want to write about love, or you want to write about relationships, or you want to write about autonomy, or oppression, or repression, things of that nature. So cruising through these, right? Any of these will work. Whenever you get a source from the database, you know it's reputable. But my favorite are, number one, the biography page from katechopin.org, right? So that's a good one. You could use that. But now back to the Literature Resource Center. Per Sejersted, an excerpt from the Kate Chopin, A Critical Biography. Now, when you read this little blurb, it tells you what the article's about. He examines Chopin's treatment of the social and sexual issues of her day. Setting, right? You can analyze the setting of the story, and the word milieu, right? M-I-L-I-E-U, in reading and writing about literature. I believe it's under the paragraph on setting, pages 76 to 79. If you look up milieu, you'll see that a milieu is a political and social setting. So it's a part of setting, a person's social environment, culture, society, laws, traditions, practices, right? Not just at the setting in the story, but the setting of when the story was written. So what was life like back then for a woman? Kate Chopin, so that's treatment of the social and sexual issues of her day. So that's definitely, right, a gender criticism. That's definitely a social criticism, looking at milieu, looking at the characters, looking at possible themes. Kate Chopin, Scribbling Women in the American Literary Masterpiece. I would stick with this one as a possible. Now, this one's a great source. Look at the title, Fatal Self-Assertion in Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour. In the following essay, Berkhoff contends that Chopin's narration is ironic rather than straightforward. Fatal self-assertion in Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour. In the following essay, Berkhoff views the character of Louise Mallard as an immature egotist and victim of her own extreme self-assertion. Next one, The Autonomous Female Self and the Death of Louise Mallard in Kate Chopin's The Story of an Hour. In the following essay, Cunningham maintains that the heroine dies of shock. Jennifer Hicks, an overview of The Story of an Hour. She discusses the theme of female self-assertion. Okay, so going back up, right? Per Sejersted, dealing with setting and milieu. Fatal self-assertion, dealing with character and plot. Autonomous female self, dealing with character, plot, and also milieu. And you can say this one's milieu in some ways too, because of the irony in the setting. Why is Joy actually not, why is she not happy? Why is she actually something else when she sees it? Overview of The Story of an Hour, female self-assertion, again, character, milieu, gender criticism, these guys' ideas. Now, here's an interesting one. For those of you who want to look at counter-argument and who might, because remember, you don't have to always agree with the critics. You can bring in critics that you disagree with and engage in dialectical thinking to make your position stronger. But you always want to appear fair, and you always want to have empathy. So even if you disagree with them, you have to agree with them about something to appear fair. You're not going to say they're 100% wrong. This Daniel Deneau, Chopin's The Story of an Hour, the last source that comes up. In the following essay, Deneau treats, and you can read this yourself, he has a very, very interesting take on the story. Now, even if you disagree with him, that's fine. But what you have to do is recognize that his whole argument is based on the word possess. And he said the word possess back then has a sexual connotation. So even if you disagree with him, he still bases it on facts. And again, if you're making logical arguments and you base them on facts, that's what this class is all about. We're not going to all agree on literature, specifically what the meaning of a poem or a story or a play is. And as long as you base it on facts. So even if you disagree with him, which I do, I think he's crazy. If you read this essay, I don't know what the hell the guy's thinking. But If you look at this paragraph, passage becomes an explicit description of a sexual union. One of the meanings of the verb possess is to have sexual intercourse with a woman, according to OED, that's Oxford English Dictionary. And is this meaning that was known to Chopin? And then he goes on, because he feels that that whole moment when she's in the room by herself is a moment of sort of sexual possession. Again, I disagree with him, but if I were to bring this article in and disagree with it, I would make sure that I said, although, right, kind of make a concession. Although Danielle Deneau's reading seems extremely far-fetched, he does ground it in, you know, the definition of the word possess. He feels it's some sort of like sexual assault by the Holy Spirit. I know, I don't know what he's thinking. Well, read the article and you'll know what he's thinking. I could see that idea, but I don't necessarily think it's an assault by the Holy Spirit. I think if anything, it's more of like a possession of her own identity. And a lot of female scholars are suggesting that it's kind of a moment where she's like, I don't need a man anymore. And even some scholars have gone so far as to say that perhaps maybe she's realizing that not only does she not need a man anymore, but perhaps by being in possession of herself and her identity, perhaps some scholars have said that Mrs. Mallard kind of undergoes a transformation in terms of her sexual identity while she's in the room. It's an interesting point, and there's a lot of facts in the story that support those ideas, but just as my sample intro paragraph did, make sure that your claim is grounded in the elements, is grounded in facts, and then make sure that you're going to support that claim by listing out those elements of fiction: plot, character, setting, point of view, style, and the like, theme, when those elements from 76 to 79. So hopefully this video was helpful. Make sure you get in touch if you have any questions, and thank you for your patience.